Hello everyone. My overall impression from Book 1 was that Lucretius was definitely a man who was committed to seeking an understanding of the natural world, and that he put a considerable amount of thought into composing on the nature of things. On one hand, that's good. Investing time and energy into careful observation and diligent study is good exercise for the mind, and it can be more productive than constantly pursuing empty entertainments. But on the other hand, Lucretius also provides an example which illustrates my big takeaway from the book, which is that an individual can spend an entire lifetime learning and acquiring information, and yet still never come to a knowledge of the truth. For someone who is adept at pinpointing the logical fallacies made by his predecessors, Lucretius had a glaring blind spot for identifying the inconsistencies of his own reasoning. For example, on page 61, Lucretius states, quote, "Our world was not formed by design, but by the chance movements of atoms," end quote. Yet at the very beginning of the book, he calls Venus the life-giver, without whose aid nothing comes forth into the bright coasts of light. He also adds that she alone is pilot to the nature of things. To use his own terminology, the later thought vitiates the first. A pilot is one who guides and directs something toward a destination, and the very act of piloting requires a conscious decision. Therefore, if Lucretius truly believed that Venus was responsible for bringing all things into being, she first would have had to exist before them, and if he also believed she was the pilot to the nature of things, by necessity, creation would then have been a product of her conscious intent and design. Additionally, on page 29, Lucretius proclaimed religion to be the foe of mankind. He observes that religion has given birth to sinful and unholy deeds, and so concludes that in order for mankind to achieve peace, they must banish religion. But how would an absence of religion bring about peace? What's religion besides a codified standard of moral laws? Without a standard to guide and govern behaviors, everyone would simply decide for themselves what's good and bad, right or wrong. So, for example, let's say you and I are both free from any thoughts derived from religious instruction. Let's also say that at some point in my life, I had someone share something with me, and from that experience, I conclude that sharing is good. Perhaps you agree, but at the same time, you might not be willing to share everything. But because I believe that sharing is good, I might decide that not sharing is bad, and therefore conclude that it's wrong for you to withhold something from me. I might then also decide to fight you in order to amend that perceived wrong. So you can see from that scenario that an absence of religion wouldn't eliminate disputes between people or nations, because an absence of religion would do nothing to change the selfishness of human nature. In fact, the elimination of religion would be much more likely to result in an increase of animosity, both individually and collectively, because religion, true religion, works towards reducing the selfishness inherent in human nature, and thus promotes peace. However, as Lucretius aptly observed, religion can also be used to justify impious deeds, and men have likewise fought wars under its banner. The solution, though, is not to brand religion as the enemy of man, when in actuality the problem is the prevalence of false religion. But the thing that makes me wonder the most is how Lucretius could say that religion was the enemy and yet still believe in Venus as a god. Say what now? Because believing in Venus or any other god kind of sounds like religion to me. So why the inconsistency? So those are some of my thoughts on the text. As far as managing the reading was concerned, exposure to complex literature previously helped me to understand this particular work. Reading a work like this one with the purpose of comprehending it requires more time than reading purely for enjoyment. So I just had to go through it at a slower pace and pause to reflect on the meaning wherever and whenever it wasn't readily apparent. And with that, I will wrap it up. So thank you for watching.